What's up, everyone? I'm Mickey Stevens, and I'm bringing you Goose Trail. So today, I figure take a little break from Destiny and dive back into some hot topics. The hot topic is women, realistically, being the most toxic fucking creature that has ever existed in our timeline. Now, if we look at male toxicity, which we are today, to be fair, since I did one on females, but when we really look at the end, women have destroyed what is now. 80 years since like World War II, and they're only proving to act more radical, more dangerous. The words that come out of their mouth is becoming uh, violent, verbally and physically. And what we're learning about today, the male masculinity, well, we are dealing with male masculinity since the beginning of time. We are what we fucking are because this is it. We have it all. We know how to do it all. And the only thing we need help with is cook and clean while we do everything else. I'm starting to get a little more rancid as the years go by, which is why I have completely said to myself, we ain't going in to give one woman any try. The only woman in my life that's me trying is my best friend, Ruby. Um, I know what she's like. I know her attitude. I know her actions. I know how she will react. She's not. She knows how to shut the fuck up, which no women know how to do. You do not know how to shut the fuck up. You don't know how to shut the fuck up because you are stuck in a power struggle. You're still out there trying to prove that you are just as capable as men. No, you're not. We can see all around the world in every single section of work that men do better work in the end than a woman. The best thing women are doing at the most is desk working, pen moving, computer mouse moving, clicking here, clicking there kind of bullshit. You can be a nurse. As far as I'm concerned, women's rights need to be taken away. They need to be put behind the houses again, creating and raising the family. If they want the job, well, there's prostitution, there's online whoring, and then there's nursing. Anything that women have been always is take care of the family, take care of the men. Well, you take care of the men pretty well with cooking, cleaning, and sexual fun. And you can't get mad at me because women are fucking crying out there because they need the D. And they need the D more than we need the V, boys, because we don't have eggs inside of us screaming biology through our brains, craving, crying, becoming suicidal over the fact that this is how much they want a child. And then when you get with a single mother, it's terrible. It is absolutely terrible. That is the worst relationship you can get into, and that's what I have always ended up finding myself into. Only one relationship with no kids at the start of everything, and I left it like a fucking idiot. But being young and dumb and to be funny, full of cum, I fell in love with a neighbor. She's always home. My relationship, I see her for a couple hours every evening, and that's it. Wham bam, thank you, ma'am kind of relationship. She was younger than me, going to university, trying to be a yoga instructor and a doctor. Yeah, I left that for complete white trash. Cracker Jack style, man. Now, if you don't follow people who talk about real information, then it's good you watch me in the end of things because this is what I do. I find the reality. I'm trying to stick on reality, which is more men and women. Um, of course, some world news, but I mean, I can't feed you all the world news in the world because the government won't unredact 90% of it. I'm talking about the Epstein files, realistically. I could play an hour of U.S. government bullshit talking about how they're trying to protect whistleblowers so that we can finally figure out all this alien bullshit. And if we're protecting whistleblowers in this court case, why weren't we doing that? I mean, this is more dangerous information to release than Epstein files, so I guess they wouldn't be talking about whistleblowers in the Epstein files, I guess, as much. I don't know. Because they could redact everything? I don't know. All right, so Roni Fuchs. She is so intelligent. She's got a scripted video that she's created. And the first one on feminine toxicity was like, fuck. I understand how they just have shit fall out of their mouth all the time. I understand it now. I got it. That might be better. Yeah, the toxic femininity episode was, in my mind, like gold. Like, really made me understand how that shit falls out of their mouth without them thinking about what's coming out. It just, their mouth is so used to regurgitation now. It's disgusting. But let's get into how I, as a man, have been studied and documented as being toxic. Let's dive in. Let's
Yes,
learn
there
something.
is such a thing as toxic masculinity, but it's not what you think. We keep hearing that traditional masculinity is in itself toxic, but today I'm going to prove to you that that's just not true. If you're new here, my name is Roni, and on this channel, we dive deep into human nature to help us become everything we're meant to be. In this video, I'm going to explain what it really means for masculinity to become toxic, and I'm going to talk about the 4 archetypal profiles of toxic.
Now, just remember, as a woman, as a man, doesn't matter what sex, but we ourselves literally build that toxicity into our nature. This is how I always like to talk about positive thinking, especially when a woman gets into my life, because they are full of so much so much negativity, and I don't understand it, right? So, well, the reason I don't understand it is because I've tried and practiced so much to keep negative thoughts at bay as best as I can. You know, if it's like me being pissed off at my neighbors across the street because they're just cattle and they're hard to deal with. I mean, that's me just dealing with the farm animal basically, and I need to bitch. But I think I'm pretty far from being toxic, considering on how much I practice being positive. Of course, you're going to listen to me on here, and I'm going to just sound toxic. But hello, we are humans. We need to bitch. And if I came on YouTube and talked about the birds and the bees all the time, well, I would never watch myself. Things on screen are supposed to be entertaining, right? Bloody, exciting.
Toxic masculine behavior: the barbarian, the tyrant, the womanizer, and the evil genius. Yes, there are bad men out there, but that doesn't mean that all men are bad. Stick with me to the end if you want to understand what the real difference is between healthy masculinity and toxic masculinity. Let's get started. You hear a lot of people today saying that
And if you did watch my feminine toxicity episode, then you're going to see a big difference between trying to explain toxicity in each sex, in each gender. Men have like 4 labels of being rude, but women, them being rude is secretive, it's internal, it's destructive. If it wasn't destructive, how come all the families in North America can't stay together? Because we have an extremely high level of female toxicity as opposed to males. You can see it. Men don't want to talk to women anymore. I wonder who's a little more toxic now. You know, maybe it's time for me to cash in like a woman. I think it's time for me to become a male escort for the female gender because they ain't getting the D. They're online bitching like fucking like. Do you see men bitching online other than like working here is a waste of my life now, and this is bullshit, and they go and bitch about it. But women bitch about everything. But yeah, men have these labels like, of course, you've seen that womanizer, the tyrant. But women, it's like labeled on how the mind works internally, outwardly, and it's discussing how women bash themselves and group together through pain, pain that they have created, making a little click around that so that in the future their click is something that every woman creates. So when the day comes that they do have babies, they have a click to rely on to help her raise the baby. It's disgusting. Warfare is what it is. It's warfare inside a woman's mind, but inside a man's mind, it's everything that we have to put up with day to day. And depending on how well we can take it or how bad we do take it, we will fall into one of four archetypes of the toxic masculinity. So, again, bringing myself back down to positive thinking. If I could always be a positive thinker, I keep myself further away from the four archetypes of toxic masculinity.
That masculinity is in itself toxic, but really,
I gotta
no
get my
one
hash
knows what
browns.
toxic masculinity actually is.
Do you think that toxic masculinity is a problem that we need to address in society?
In society, I'd say it definitely is something we should address.
It's definitely an issue that most of us face in some way or another.
I definitely think it is an issue at large.
I've absolutely heard of toxic masculinity, and I do think it's an issue.
I think it's a huge issue that should be addressed.
It's a real problem. How would you define toxic masculinity as a term in your own words?
Toxic masculinity, I would define as
There isn't a sort of logic to it. I feel like it's more just strutting your stuff and being manly beyond there being a point to be.
I don't really know.
The idea that men have to be a certain way, dominant or dominant, physically imposing and all, and to the extent where
and these constructs are not necessarily conducive to building strong relationships between different members.
Then you hear people saying that traditional masculinity is itself the problem.
We're rejecting traditional masculinity. We're rejecting traditional masculinity because it's toxic, and it's toxic because it's powerful. That traditional masculinity is harmful to men, that it is the cause and the result of a power imbalance, which it continues to propagate, and that the power playing field is being leveled out due to changing gender roles, and controlling traditional masculinity unleashes tremendous benefits for society.
The fact that there was a debate at the Oxford Union about whether or not traditional masculinity is toxic is fucking hilarious. Now, you might be thinking, these are just some silly college students talking nonsense. But these ideas have serious consequences. There's a real mental.
In that last scene, we just seen a woman trying to talk about male toxicity in like a court setting. And Roni Fuchs thinks that's a fucking hilarious joke.
Health crisis in boys and men today. And the messaging they're getting is that traditional masculinity is the reason for it.
Men are 3.5 times more likely to commit suicide than women, and it is the leading cause of death for men under 35. Men are occupying the top jobs and making the most money, but they also form over 90% of the prison population. They suffer more academic
The most money. I can't go on OnlyFans and furry cosplay the shit out of myself. Nothing sexy about watching a guy stroking it as opposed to something going inside and disappearing, and being inside is the part that's stroking off the male. Like,
challenges. The most underperforming demographic group in the UK is the white working class.
in an episode trying to speak about toxic masculinity, and we got women in here and their feminist bullshit.
Male. Men are simultaneously the top of society and the bottom of the pile. This proves that something is wrong. And the common
Again, how are we making more money? Unless we do the work. Women only make money when they spread their legs.
denominator is traditional masculinity.
But here's the thing. Traditional masculinity is not the problem. It's the fact that for several generations now, we've been making men feel guilty for being men.
I really love this because a woman is here trying to express and explain and teach us about what real toxic masculinity is. And right off the start, why are we toxic? Because women have been making men feel guilty for being men. And ever since they got women's rights, it's exploded and become 1 million times so terrible that the world will never be the same anymore because of destruction of females. And a woman can never say she's wrong. So they'll argue this point till they die.
And we certainly haven't been letting boys be boys. And if we don't learn to distinguish between healthy masculinity and toxic masculinity, the crisis is only going to get worse. So, what is toxic masculinity? Simply put, toxic masculinity can be described as behaviors that are masculine in nature, evolutionarily speaking, which are used in ways that are destructive, aggressive, manipulative, and or exploitative. Here's a perfect example.
The dirty little secret about toxic masculinity.
It's just bad right now because of what women have done. Just because we're acting out, only 1%, we're only acting out 1% of the way women do when they go and bitch online. Like, is that not clear? Anything a man says, women get online and amplify it to be 1 million times worse than what it actually was talking about. See, women transform shit so that they can bitch to make a click. It's women have created toxic masculinity.
When properly explained, there is such a thing as toxic masculinity, just like there's such a thing as toxic femininity. Here's the devil in the details that a lot of the people that use those terms don't like to admit. As soon as they say that, you know what they're admitting to? Binary. They're actually admitting that there are
You know, for the most part. But really, for the most part, women created toxic masculinity. Women might find us to be toxic at nature because, let's face it, we were the ones that were the kings. We rule. And if we rule, women are always going to find us to be toxic no matter what we do. Good, we're toxic. Bad, you know, sometimes if you're bad, you're good. But if you're good, you're toxic.
masculine traits and that there are feminine traits. When we look at things like aggression or competitiveness or a capacity for violence, these traits are morally neutral until they're actually put into action. So the man that uses that aggression or that competitiveness or that capacity for violence to take a woman's purse and run down the street, that is a negative manifestation of a masculine trait. Then when the other man steps in and stops him and returns it, those are positive manifestations of those masculine traits. So this is not a question of whether or not the traits will exist. It's a question of whether or not they will receive positive manifestations and positive outworkings or negative.
This is what I always say too. I've got a hammer in my garage. Now, to explain that hammer, it was built for construction, to build. Build to do and build good things for others. That's a positive trait of masculinity. And even then, you're going to find some women to find some way to say that's toxic. A man's helping someone. He's an incel faggot. But that same hammer, the martial arts movies that I like to watch from time to time, I see some of these Asians wielding two hammers, one in each hand, and that is definitely a war piece weapon. Nothing about a hammer, when you see it in a fight, can you ever imagine that hammer building something? When you can see how much pain and defense that hammer actually brings to a fight. Whoa. So, when I always like to say, doesn't matter who you are, when you take this tool, how will you use it? Will you use it for the good or will you use it for the bad? So, it doesn't matter who you are. Are you going to use your human behavior for the good or the manipulative bad?
Ones.
Masculine energy is strong, it's potent. It has the potential to be channeled into industry, innovation, and the building of empires. And it can also be channeled into senseless violence, bloodshed, and endless misery. Masculinity is powerful.
See, masculinity needs the bloodshed after they're done everything. Look at our video games. Look at the Roman Colosseum. And it wasn't just men. It wasn't just men watching these Colosseum fights to the death. The other half were women. I bet maybe half of the women didn't care to be there because of their man. But women were there partaking in the violence. I don't really know where I'm going now.
Powerful. And as the saying goes,
with great power comes great responsibility.
So when does masculinity become toxic? When it isn't developed within a moral framework. Masculine energy is so powerful that it does have the potential to create real physical harm. But that's why, for centuries, men went through initiation rites that symbolized their transformation from boys into men and were guided by strong, wise, honorable men. These rites of passage taught these young men how to harness their incredible strength and energy into meaningful, virtuous pursuits. This is where young men were taught code of honor.
When you talk about the toxicity, the feminine toxicity in my last episode, these two episodes don't even compare. This episode is really showing men and women that men, even if you call us toxic, we are still powerful, we are still just, we are still right. Yes, there is some toxic men out there. Rapers, murderers, pedos. There's always going to be bad people. But you can't make that bad person and turn it into all the world's men are bad. You have to talk about one person, not men as a whole community. But there's just no comparison. Talking about toxic femininity, that was pure toxic the whole way through learning about that shit. But this is just proving all of us men in a weird way. It's like only what goes on inside your womanly mind can you say that I'm being a toxic male. When I'm outside doing all the chores, I'm inside doing all the chores, and when we get into an argument, you start saying shit like, you give me everything, you do everything for me. No, the only thing that you do for me is you spread your legs, and at this point, spreading your legs is just a fucking job for me. It's just a chore. Yeah. It could be fun. It could be a fun chore, but it's a chore that I didn't want to get to. You see what I mean? And women have to be banged to keep them happy, because if you don't bang them, their mind starts going a million miles an hour And when it starts going a million miles an hour, you have constant fights over nothing because she's trying to blame you for something that cannot be proven because there's zero proof because it did not happen.
And discipline.
Ugh.
They were allowed to develop their masculine virtues and were taught how to not let these virtues turn into vices. Masculinity, if not balanced with
Not turn into
empathy, honor,
vices,
and a strong value system,
right?
can become dangerous. But with the right guidance and the right roadmap, it can be the source of tremendous good. So before we dive into the 4 archetypes of toxic masculinity, it's important to understand what masculine traits actually are. In order to understand when masculinity turns dangerous, we need to understand what it is in the first
We
place.
have to.
I
In
hear a
this
lot of
episode,
people
it's so
fumbling with
different
this and
than the
saying that we
toxic
need to redefine
female
what
episode.
masculinity is.
We're actually trying to redefine
We have
what it means to be a man, and none of us have any idea because we're just out here trying.
Oh, we have to tell you what good traits of being a man is in this episode so that you can make a decision on if it's real toxic or not. And now we're in a room full of men who don't even know how to be men anymore. Why don't they know how to be men anymore? Because women can't shut the fuck up. Women shouldn't be allowed to come online. There's only one area that women should be able to come in and around, and that's to record themselves online at this point. Online hoeing. That's the only place you're allowed. You can't. Anything you post on YouTube gets taken down. You've got no more voice in this world, women. Shut the fuck up. Unless you're like Sean Head and Roni Fuchs here. Shut the fuck up.
Saying that we need to redefine what masculinity is.
We're actually trying to redefine what it means to be a man, and none of us have any idea because we're just out here trying to be whoever we are.
That's right. I think that historically, being a man was rooted in patriarchy and misogyny. And now we realize how harmful that has been over the years. And so we don't really know how to define where we're supposed to be.
Sorry to tell you this, but you're not going to redefine hundreds of thousands of years of evolution. And part of the problem is that men think that redefining masculinity means that they need to become more feminine.
But maybe more broadly, there's a danger that...
Exactly. We have to become more feminine to figure out if that's what we have to become in order to be in this world with females. Because, I mean, if you're a man, you're a fucking gay incel.
We treat men like malfunctioning women.
Malfunctioning
so
women.
Your problem is you're not feminine enough, you're not caring enough, you're not nurturing enough, you're not emotionally vulnerable enough, you don't cry enough, you don't spend enough time with your kid.
Okay, so what is masculinity? Masculinity is characterized by dominance, aggression, analytical over emotional thinking, risk-taking, and hierarchical organization.
But you want to call me toxic. Every time we assert dominance, show aggression, prove that we are analytic over emotional thinking, we are always extremely high risk taking, and we will always be part of the hierarchical organization because what's between my legs, ladies, is something that you have always wished for, but you can't even handle your women's rights. And I love the women out there who think that they're going to become gay and then go back online bitching about how much worse women really are than men. Why'd I do this? And then you got some women that turning into men and then they're crying online after their sex change. Like, women, you have no idea the shit that goes through our minds, you cannot handle what goes on through our minds. You cannot handle what our minds are capable of handling. We are men, motherfucker. This is dominance. This is aggression. This really is analytical over emotional thinking. All the analytical, it's pressing my emotional thinking, pressing me to taking risks. No matter how hard you try, I'm always going to be part of the hierarchical organization, bitch. Now, isn't this information about what women are trying to tell everyone around the world is toxic masculinity? And even when you start talking about toxic masculinity, it's real masculinity, bitch. And this is how it's always been. This is how it's always going to be. And if you can't get the D anymore, it's proof you've ruined the fucking world. Men don't want to touch you with a fucking 1,000-foot pole. I don't want to be walking on the same side of the street as a woman. Like I keep on saying, if there's a gang on the other side, I'm going to run to the brothers who might kill me than have to fucking deal with this bitch coming at me. And that's more painful than getting beat up. Like, I'm probably not even going to get beat up. It's a group of guys. Once I get over there, they'll size me up and be like, he might be gang material. Let's see what this brother's got to say. Or maybe it might not be like that. They might just be having a good time outside and another guy coming by and they're like, want to chit the chat. This is just amazing. Everything a man is toxic. It's toxic. Being a man is toxic. Everything about a man is toxic. But being a woman is everything. You can't get us in trouble because we're cute. We've got holes to stick your dick into, you know. But when you get with us after the dicking, we become fucking demonic. Demonic to the point that you will never want to touch us. And then you'll never want to touch us. And then we will get to bitch that there is men prostitution because women can't get the D and men have figured out, hey, it's time to start cashing in like a bitch. Now they'll become another OnlyFans in the future and men will be the stars and women won't be able to get looked at. Because it will be women who become the perverts of the world who can't. They have put themselves into a position that they have always been saying we're in.
Masculinity
And they have to
has
live through it
evolved
now,
from
not us.
warfare and hunting. This means that men needed to evolve their ability to be aggressive, calm under pressure, and more risk-seeking.
Be able to fight and be able to be calm under pressure. Can a fucking woman? No! I could scream all fucking day and people are like, quiet down, you're yelling. No, bitch, I'm just expressing my emotions. Don't tell me to hide my masculinity, bitch. I'ma slap you, bitch! Figuratively speaking. I'm not a violent person. I don't hit. I have never hit back. The only time I did hit back was like the ex-wife was beating me up physically and verbally for almost a full half an hour before I'm trying to go write my A1 trucker's license so that I can make more money for the family. But after I cooked and made her lunch and her son's lunch and woke her up calmly and said, "Hey, babe, I gotta go write tests. Love you." Shit flies off the hanger. Lost my point here. But the point is men being toxic is just men being men, but only women, when they think about something, they transform it. And then when it comes out of their mouth, it's shit. And there's a lot of people around her that collect that shit up and frame it. And every time a woman gets the frame shit that falls out of her mouth, she takes that as like a victory. And she'll never forget about that victory. Like, men forgot right after it fucking happened. That's why we can stay calm. We can forget a fight and be best friends right after. Done and done. Women don't know how to be human. All they know how to be is animals who protect babies. You give that creature a life, something close to what humans are like, and that shit just self-destructed, didn't it? It self-destructed. She got a little bit of freedom and didn't know how to handle it. Why? Because her mind was not biologically created by God to handle the pressures of the entire world. Her pressures are professionalized around home care.
Than risk averse. Because men had to coordinate and cooperate in groups in order to successfully hunt and protect their tribes from invaders, they developed an innate sense of hierarchical organization. While they compete
We
for
have to hunt
dominance, they are
for you
also able to
bitches. But
cooperate
we
with
can't
one
hunt
another
anymore
if it
for you
means
bitches
that
because
their
when we do
group will
shit like
become
that,
more
we're gay.
successful. And for anyone who thinks men's aggression is socially conditioned, I've got news for you. It's an inherent biological trait that is seen early on in boys. Joyce Benenson wrote a book called
That's
Warriors and
right,
Worriers:
motherfucker.
The Survival of the Sexes, where she observed the natural play behaviors of young children. And here's what she found. Most little boys enjoy play fighting. Play fighting is often called rough and tumble play in the objective wording of the biological and psychological literatures. This, of course, disguises its basic quality: fighting and loving it. In fact, the only way to distinguish play fighting from real fighting is the laughter and lack of anger that accompany the play version.
See, and here's the funny thing now. As a man, we were created to fight. As a fighter, we can create the balance. I need to go back here.
The only way to distinguish play fighting from real fighting is the laughter and lack of anger that accompany the play version.
This, of course, disguises its basic quality, fighting and loving. In fact, the only way to distinguish play fight. See, we love to fight, but women don't know how to fight. As soon as it is a fight, or they always create the fight somehow. That's why I was always like praying to God, can you teach me how to speak to women so that there's no fighting ever? Because it happens every day, twice, 3 times a day. I can't speak without being yelled at. Like, I like fighting, but not like that. And then you pull us into a fight, and then you insult us. Like, I've heard shit the way a woman can say is disgusting. I don't know how to say shit in such hateful forms like a woman. I think I lost what my train of thought was.
By the time little boys are old enough to interact enjoyably with one another toward the end of infancy, play fighting is one of their favorite activities.
You know what? Boys are pussies. Actually, no. Boys are men. Men are pussies. So I am a man at this point in my story. And throughout the man years, I have attended UFC fight nights. Um, these fight nights were in a room full of men I didn't know, women I didn't know, and close to the end of the fight nights, and even like halftime break, that takes a while. I'm asking the guys, who wants to go out and have some fun outside and play fight? No punching, no kicking, no biting. Only wrestling. Choking, throwing that arm and leg locks. Who wants to go? No, no, boys. Who's a fucking man in here? Who wants to go and play fight outside right now? Nobody. Are you We're here. We've got 12 guys in here, man. We're watching men fight each other. Nobody wants to come fight me? So we've got a whole... See, this is the toxic masculinity part. I'm in a room full of men. I'm asking a bunch of men who wants to go fucking fight. And they sit there and sip their beer like pansy incel little pansy bitches. You're gonna sit there and say no because what, your little tiny girlfriend would rather sit here? Are you a pussy, dude? Are you a fucking You're here watching dudes fight and you don't want to come fight me? You pussy. You fucking pussies. Hold on a second, you guys. So, if a man goes to have some fun in a room of some women, what? They're going to call us pussies? Incels because we're fighting? What? We can't be a man, so we can't fight each other anymore? What's going on here, man? If I ask you to play fight me, I better expect to hear a yes. And if I don't hear a yes, I'm just going to fucking punch you, okay? I'm going to risk, high risk, on the fact that there is a good possibility after I punch that dude, he's going to call the police and I'm going to go to jail. Women called the police on me already, so I'm fucked already. What the fuck did I do with that thing? What is it? There it is. Duh. Alright. Boys, I kept saying I have to try to be fair and talk about the toxic masculinity. But as far as we've gone in, we're only looking at traits of masculinity only being described by women throughout the 80 years and only them transforming our natural male traits into toxic male traits.
Even boys who don't feel comfortable with actual play fighting because they're less sociable, smaller, or less coordinated than other boys still enjoy observing it from a distance or engaging in it virtually through computer or video games, or in former days, books. The enjoyment that play fighting provides continues well into adolescence and even in some places into adulthood.
Like,
Good
do
luck
women not know
socially
anything? Are
conditioning
they that
them
fucking
out of
dumb?
that. I'm going to be making a whole other
You
video on what
graduated,
happens
but
to
you
boys'
still don't
development
know jack
if this kind
shit.
of boisterous playing is suppressed. So look out for that. So what is the barbarian? Simply put,
Another
the
man trait
barbarian is
that
the
you have
warrior who
called
uses his power and aggression for senseless destruction and violence. He's the man possessed by the sin of wrath. He's the toxic version of the honorable warrior archetype. A positive manifestation of the warrior archetype is a man who uses his physical power and aggression to protect his wife, children, and his people.
So, we're talking about the barbarian side of men, but now it's become toxic. Thanks. As a man, I can't protect anything anymore physically. Literally, in North America, as a man, if I touch you, I'm fucked. That's just how it is. That's just how it is. Don't fucking argue with me. That's just how it is. So far, we've learned that just being a man in an episode that's trying to teach us the archetypes that are toxic masculinity. But these traits are showing us that we are what we are, like we always have been, like we always will be. Women can't just be thrown in the world and given these fucking man rights because they will never understand how to handle it because the mind was not biologically created to handle what I fucking can, bitch. And that's the truth. That's the fucking truth. And this is the weird thing because of like my exes and me as a man being able to witness the vast amount of power that the female holds in her pussy. Any set of lips that this woman has, she's got the power. At that point, just being able to watch and hear a woman disgustingly lie. Like how she was saying it, like that shit did not happen. Where's I going? Shit.
Who uses his physical power and aggression to protect his wife, children, and his people. He
You get so sidetracked because it's one topic, and that one topic has many stories wrapped around it, right? Like I get stuck around my own past, of course, personal. I like to use those stories the most because I'm not the kind of person to use other people's stories for my example. Okay? I never like using other people's life stories as one of my examples. And it sucks because when I start using an example, sometimes I forget what I was talking about. That used to happen before the brain damage. It definitely happens a little easier and more since my traumatic brain injury. And if you're new here listening to that, hey, I I didn't get into a bad accident. I was separating from my ex-wife because she was lying to the police way too much. See, there I go. I forgot. Shut up, Mickey.
operates based on a code
Shut
of
the
honor,
fuck up,
courage, self-sacrifice, and love for his fellow man. But the barbarian engages in violence for its own sake. He doesn't care who he hurts because through his aggression, he feels more powerful. This is the warrior with no morality. He gets a high from causing pain and destruction wherever he goes. It can
There's always going to be that kind of person no matter who you are, woman or male. There's a lot of movies that we watch, and there is men and there's these male characters that feed almost through a whole story. There's one guy who just loves to kill. It just that's his love in life is killing. And the main character would go through a couple fights of this freak, and in the end the main character beats the lover of murder, sort of speaking. Serial killers out there, you know, there is bad people. There's always going to be bad people, but why do we try to label it as toxic masculinity or toxic femininity? Right? Because we're talking about one person. And this one person is transforming the rest of us, sort of speaking. Vicious cycles.
even give him an ego
Shut
boost
up,
and
Nikki.
make him feel untouchable.
Just let us listen.
Now, all of these archetypes score high on the dark tetrad traits, which are well-researched personality scores of antisocial behavior. Now, each one of these toxic archetypes has their own particular combination of traits. The barbarian scores especially high on sadism and psychopathy. Sadism is defined as deriving pleasure from causing pain, humiliation, or suffering to others, whether
I don't know, maybe that's men trying to create entertainment when they're not having to be a barbarian, right? Like,
physically, emotionally, or socially. Simply put, the sadist actually enjoys seeing other people suffer. Psychopathy is defined by a total lack of empathy,
well, there's a lot of
impulsive
women like
behavior, and a
More
lack
women
of
than
guilt
men.
or remorse. They're often thrill-seeking, fearless, and completely unconcerned with the
Seriously.
consequences of their actions. The combination of these two traits, along with the natural male traits of aggression and dominance, can have deadly consequences. Now, I hope you can see that it's not the capacity for aggression that's the problem here. It's when it's combined with these antisocial traits that it actually becomes toxic. Now, a universal type of barbarian, who we've all probably met at some point in our lives, is the schoolyard bully. There's always one in every school who gets off on making other boys' lives miserable. He enjoys beating up the weak boys. It's a game for him. Just a bit of fun. An ancient mythological version of this archetype is the Greek god Ares, the god of war. Ares embodies the chaotic, brutal, and destructive aspects of war. He's the personification of raw violence, bloodlust, and the unpredictable nature of battle. He gets lost in the passion and frenzy of the battle. Throughout history, human barbarians have channeled and embodied the Ares archetype. The Visigoths who invaded Rome were literally called the barbarians at the gate. These are the Vikings who pillaged and terrorized northern and western Europe. These are the Mongols under Genghis Khan who conquered a continent through terror and a lust for bloodshed. A man who has a strong capacity for violence is not necessarily evil or toxic. These are your soldiers and police officers risking their lives for a noble cause, the honorable warriors. But the barbarian is a man who has a strong capacity for violence, who was never initiated into manhood by mature, virtuous men. Psychologically speaking,
So maybe the barbarian in today's world is the actual real man who does enjoy hurting women in relationships. See, I don't. Oh, that I didn't say that earlier. Yeah, the only time I hit back was when my ex-wife was beating me up for like a half an hour, and I pushed her off of me. She went down on the ground right in the middle of the living room right here, and I don't remember her body coming closer than 1 foot of this little glass table that was there. She's down on the ground on her hands and knees, and I was behind her, and I kind of gave her bum a little tap with my foot, a little like with the flat of my foot, not like toe in or anything. I just gave her a little bum a tap and said, "You say you love me. Where is all this coming from? And if you don't know, please show some respect." Give her bum a little tap with my foot. I did not hoof her. She didn't get hoofed and she like moved up a foot. That wasn't the case. I was like, "Yo, tap. Calm down. Think twice. What the fuck?"
Barbarian was never taught how to control his aggression. He has zero impulse control and can turn violent at the smallest insult. Violence is the only tool he has to assert his manhood. The barbarian usually finds a brotherhood of other immature young men who only reinforce this ethos of manhood through destructive violence.
So you
A
get
great
gangs
book
like
on this
that?
is The Warrior Ethos by Stephen Pressfield. He compares the groups of barbarians as shadow tribes and explains how they differ greatly from true, honorable warriors. Criminal
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Exclamation mark. Thanks for getting pizza for supper. Comma. Love you and dad.
and terrorist organizations practice tribe-like codes of honor, but they don't practice the warrior ethos. They are shadow tribes. They are not warriors. In the practice of terror, in fact, the terrorist organization uses the enemy's embrace of the warrior ethos against him. How? By violating the honorable tribal warrior code in the most shocking and extreme manner, striking civilian targets, using women and children as human shields, etc. I know a thing or two about that, unfortunately. And I hope you'll start to notice one of the key features that all these toxic masculine archetypes share. The only way they know how to feel like men is through these toxic behaviors, because they've never learned any other way. Men need to prove their manhood. There's no way around it. But if they don't have healthy masculine role models to show them the way, they never learn how to use their masculine power for good. Another real life example.
So every archetype of toxic masculinity is only toxic if each archetype is used the wrong way. So all men, just like the toxic females episode, it's all about how the human raises and trains itself, ultimately, whether it's woman or male. You've got these traits that define your feminine status or male status, the way your emotions run, the way you caught in the act. So you can call me a barbarian in a toxic way, but are you calling me a barbarian because I am being toxically barbarian? Or are you just trying to use that as an insult because I'm able to be a barbarian for the good? Right? Like the only one of the three archetypes of male toxicity is the womanizer, maybe? And the only reason these traits are maybe becoming more toxic is the fact that women have insulted us so much for the past decade that I won't look at you on the street because I'm scared you're going to think the wrong thing, say a bunch of shit online, or in my worst fear is you're going to create a fight with me on the street and you're just going to call the police and then start calling me a pervert and say I was trying to touch you and say this and so our traits is what make us human. But the female traits are really secretive. The way a woman is made is to play mind games. Men are the way they are because we have to take care of the entire world and then come home and deal with that. And all these traits are just who we are. So again, back to if you're female or male, it's really back right to the parents. And then as you grow older, being able to think and then take care of yourself. Like, what's the kind of man that I want to be? Well, I want to be the man that can forgive someone in the wrong. I want to be able to be that kind of man who was able to forgive that person, and that person can still come up to me and be like, I really need some help. Would you be able to? And I wouldn't be able to hold a grudge. I'd be able to say, yeah, for sure, I'll help you. You know, if you hit me, it's okay, hit me again. I've taken some beatings and not attacked back. You know, it's about taking that hammer and seeing if you're the person that could use it to build or to kill. So the way I am I going to be truly a bad person or am I truly going to be someone who can take a minute and step inside your shoes personally and just treat you like a human? You've got issues. I've got issues. They've got issues. Let's talk because this is the beginning. Talking is the helping. The beginning of talking is the beginning of figuring something out. Do I want to be a good person? And being a good person isn't just going to work and coming home and saying, I make money, I'm a good dad. No, me being a good dad is being able to punish the children when they're misbehaving and being able to be the best friend to the child, but at the same time being a true parent. And I've done that in the past. The children become best friends to me. They tell me everything bad that they've ever done, and I don't scold them for anything. I look at how I was as a young man. I was mischievous. I was always loud, getting into trouble. Mischievous, getting into trouble as well. All I was doing was just being a boy. You know, climbing up on the school roof and skateboarding, getting into trouble that way, you know. Killing or knocking mice on the head just light enough where they kind of knock out for a second, but then you pick them up by the tail and they start freaking out. I dipped them into gasoline when I was like 10 years old with two other guys, and we would light them on fire, and they would be a live light being lit on fire, and they make the nastiest, gnarliest scream. And when they die, they're like a burnt statue. I'm just being a boy, burning alive mice, climbing the pool elevator and the school roof. Protecting myself against my hockey player classmates and loving the fight. I was loving the fight. Uh, Went to karate and jiu-jitsu so that I could have more fun in the fight and in the end, more control. Oh man, I love throwing Byron Alexander into the fucking fire hydrant in Kelly Schlamp's property. Ooh, bitch, you want to think you're tough in front of your boys? Okay, let's go. Fucking threw his face right into a fire hydrant and he dropped dead. His boys come after him. Byron. He ain't getting up. I'm walking away at that point, giving them the finger. I'm walking backwards. He's still not getting up. I'm half a block down. I think, yep, he's getting up. He's waking up. But walking a half a block, like, that was a couple minutes. That motherfucker was out cold. Boom! Right into the fucking fire hydrant. Ooh, did it make a gnarly sound too? The donk that the skull made in that heavy metal of a fire hydrant. Ooh. Like, that kid almost died. Like, yeah, I almost fucking killed that fucking kid. Yeah. Good times growing up. Good times growing up. That was the only time I was able to have a real fight outside of a classroom, like karate, jiu-jitsu.
Example of the barbarian are your typical.
Well, you come to my channel. Sorry, you get the talk from me. So, yeah, this episode, hers is 40 minutes. Mine's an hour and a fucking half.
Typical drug gangs. These are the kinds of men who are constantly killing
here
each
to hang
other
out with
over
y'all.
territory
I
without
talk
any
with ya.
care for the consequences. They use their physical aggression, guns, and love for violence to terrify everyone around them. These are the gangs who don't mind if they don't kill a few innocent bystanders in a drive-by shooting. It's no wonder that they tattoo a teardrop on their face to show off that they've murdered somebody. They derive a sense of pride and satisfaction when they kill, and that's the only way they know how to feel like men. The more severe version of this, and far more violent, are the drug cartels in Latin America. These cartels use murder and torture to create.
Now, we could use, yes, other people's examples in their life to try and show toxic masculinity. So, to me, this all needs to be deleted out of her video. Hold on a second. Because
Latin America. These cartels use murder.
you look at the cartel. When you're born in certain areas of the world, depending on who created you, lots of these guys are born into the cartel, so this is just life. Some people have to get into it because there's no way to take care of your family because, let's face it, look at North America, it's crumbling. The government won't increase minimum wage. Like, minimum wage should be $50. One person should be able to raise the house. So, men are put into positions in life that they did not want. We're all living our life in the positions in which our country has landed us in. Right? Like right away in North America, the only thing that we're going to be able to do is prostitution and sell drugs because nobody could work. Nobody could afford food, even if that house has got 4 people working, sort of speaking. You can't afford anything. You can't afford clothes. You can't. Like, how can I pay for internet? That's why I'm trying to get fiber optics too. I get a free hookup, and I don't have to pay $150 for Starlink. I just pay $80 a month, and it's faster. But we can't like show off the gangs and be like, these are traits of men. No, these are only traits of men because men have to live this way. We've always had to live this way. You can't just take the gang. Look at the Moose Jaw tunnels, the booze trafficking underground. Because at one point, you're going to be killed if you're found with alcohol. Bootlegging. Men have always had to do these things, so we're going to continue to always to have to do these things because there's no way for us to support our families unless we do this. So you can't look at this type of group and call all these men the toxic masculines, because I bet you 90% of the men in there are dumb, and you got 10% that are truly good. But the mixture of both percentages, they still have to do what they have to do in order to keep food in their bellies, to keep a roof over their children's heads. It's the life that they have to live that when the world looks at them, they start to judge and perceive them as the toxic masculines. But that really is not the case. A lot of criminals are in the heart, they love God. They don't want to do what they're doing, but this is just the way it is. And this is the way it's got to be. And if I don't do this, they'll kill me, sort of speaking. Some guys get out because they've been thinking for years and years, I don't want to do this. This is not good. But just because of life and how the people with the money, the elites, the world leaders, the politicians, they have created this world so that all of us civilians have to make some tough life decisions, being male or female. But to really look at female to male toxicity, men stay true to what they have always been. Women have just started this fucking toxicity. And their toxicity is making is repelling us. It's repelling us because we are the ones who want to take care and fend and love. We can't take care and protect and love that way anymore because women have their rights. Women have all the men's rights. So why don't we want to pay for the date anymore? Because you are a man. You make money. You can find a place to live. If this was before 1940 and you guys couldn't work anymore and I took you out, that's because you can't afford it. I'm going to take care of everything tonight. The dates are always going to be on me. I want you, so I'll take care of you. But now it ain't like that. It is far from being like that, and especially after the last 10 years of being called a fag and an incel and being refused by one woman. That was a joke. That was a joke, man. That was a fucking funny joke. Because I said I'm always a woman character in my games because I always thought if I was a girl, I would love to fucking dress the fuck up. You guys have so much cooler clothes than I do. Hands down. So much cooler. So much cooler. You can't compare male toxicity to anything. You either are a man that becomes bad by nature, all in all, like you truly hate everybody and everyone sees it, or you're just good and you're trapped in bad situations and you are being transformed into a creature whom you are not. But the world is not like that for a woman. No, 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 no. The world for a woman is like anything that they want to do is good. They don't have to struggle like a man to do anything. So they always put themselves in a higher position than men because they're more, what they always like to say, sophisticated. You're not more sophisticated. You are fucking so dumb because I'd like to see you do all this shit that the men are doing right now in this scene. There is no fucking way this world can survive if women were having to be the ones in charge of these positions now. It's like, men, give up. Stop doing everything. Worldwide strike, man. Nobody goes to work anymore. Women have to take care of us. We'll be the homemakers. They go sell the drugs. They go fucking be the pimps and pimp out the boys now. And let's see you fucking do it. Because, no, you can't. I'm sorry. You need the man because you don't know how to fucking change the oil or change a tire.
And torture to create a reign of terror. Often their own governments are powerless in the face of the sheer violence. It doesn't help that they're all coked up, making their psychopathic thrill-seeking and lack of guilt even worse. And an example that is far too close to home are the filthy Hamas terrorists who invaded my country on October 7th and butchered, massacred, sexually mutilated, beheaded, and burned thousands of innocent Israelis. They were high on meth, hate, and unholy rage. And you know the worst part? They enjoyed it. Evil is often gleeful. Newsflash, the barbarian is real. He's an eternal archetype that has existed throughout the dawn of time. And the only thing that stands between you and the monster are the brave, strong, virtuous men who are willing to put their lives on the line in order to protect you. Healthy masculinity is all the thousands of men who drove directly into the line of fire to protect their families and fellow countrymen. If you think toxic masculinity is a guy who's manspreading in the subway, you don't have your head screwed on straight. And you've clearly lived a very sheltered, comfortable life. But with all that said, the barbarian is a man who is terrified of looking weak. Usually, this kind of man felt weak and defenseless as a child. He was on the receiving end of physical abuse growing up, and he learned that the person who had the most power in every situation was the most violent man who could do the most damage. And unconsciously, he He learned that by becoming violent and terrifying, he would never feel weak and defenseless as he did as a child. A key point here is that he almost always turns his aggression toward women because he denies any bit of him that might be vulnerable or emotional. He equates femininity with weakness and abuses women to repress that own weakness in himself. In terms of sexual violence, when an opportunity presents itself, he takes it. Most often, these are the kind of men who don't have a good woman in their lives, and this is their chance to satisfy themselves and take what they want by force. One key finding that supports this is that polygamous societies are often more violent. In a fantastic book on the origins of monogamy called Marriage and Civilization, William Tucker writes the following: societies that are polygamous to begin with go to war precisely because they have created an imbalance by letting each man take more than one wife. This creates a demand for women that can only be resolved by stealing women from other tribes. Thus, warfare and polygamy become mutually reinforcing. Of course, all civilizations have violent elements and have been involved in wars of conquest, but the most violent civilizations are those of polygamous, nomadic warriors. If a man doesn't have a wife and a family to morally ground him and give his life meaning, he is much more likely to turn into the barbarian. There is nothing more dangerous than aimless, unmarried men.
So when you have a whole cohort of young men,
Yeah, because we got nothing to lose. So if we got nothing to lose, we have more fun taking bigger risk. Like when I'm on my quad without an animal, do you want to know how much risk I take when I'm on that machine? Like, it sucks. It was something so small. But I was drifting off the highway onto a grid road on a 45-degree angle turn. And I drifted on. That was the plan. I was going to do the drift, transfer weight to the other side, drift, drift, drift. So I drift around the turn, do my first weight shift, and in that first weight shift to do my second drift, I just got flung off. I really understand why, because I didn't put enough gas into it, I feel, and I got whipped off. And when I got whipped off, the throttle like pulled my thumb back, and now like right in here it'll like lock up, and I actually have to like crack it out and then push it. Oh, it actually pushed back into place again right now. That's kind of weird. So it's like I got this thumb that's like working while it's half dislocated, it feels like. So like, for instance, just a small example, right? Like, we take bigger risks. Like when I'm on the quad again in the valley, I'm going up a hill that I should not be going up. I'm going off jumps with the quad that I shouldn't be taking. You know, if I had a family, I might be thinking differently, you know, because if I get hurt, I can't, you know, take the kids to the hospital or, you know, something like that. You know, the kids have to take care of me. Uh, no, I take care of them. So my decisions and my play, they change depending on the position in life that a man is in, right? So if a man doesn't have something to ground him, like woman and child, our life is more, I guess, crazy would be the word. Because a man won't say no, right? He goes balls deep.
man, who are not going to college, not having the same economic opportunities, and quite frankly have no or little prospects for a romantic relationship, you generate the most dangerous person in the world. And that is a lonely, broke young man. That is any society that's violent, any society that has revolutions, any society that engages in religious extremist behavior has a disproportionate number of this cohort.
Now let's talk about the tyrant archetype. The tyrant is the toxic version of the benevolent king. He's the man possessed by the sin of pride and envy. The tyrant is essentially...
That's almost everybody outside. You know, you always hear about people flexing, right? Like, my neighbor's got this, but I gotta show off. I gotta have the better model of that vehicle, for an example. What? You want that better vehicle so that soon it's gonna get repossessed because you can't eat? Is that flexing? Or is that just a great big fat L? Yeah, that ain't no W to me. Flexing ain't no W. Flexing is an L. You flex, you're a loser. Straight up. If you flex throughout life, you're a loser. I've never flexed. Never. I've always bought vehicles around $2,000. They were perfect. And I miss getting rid of my 1985 Grand Marquis. I had 5 of them, all the same engine with the high output Ford Mustang engine. Those boats, fucking, yeah, those are fun. And they cruise like a boat. Ooh, shit. But it's like, I think a good way to describe a tyrant is anybody who flexes. Anybody who tries to be like the king is a tyrant. Straight up. You flex, you want to put more drip around the neck and shit like that. You're just flexing, you loser. All this money you're spending, all this flexing, or all this debt you're spending, you're not flexing. You're straight up losing. Straight up loser. Tyrant, loser behavior.
The king, father, boss, or leader who uses his power to control his people and rules with an iron fist.
I was talking about the money, wasn't I? With the money, if you can flex more than the other, that's getting power to control his people. If you can flex, look at Elon Musk, man.
This is the man who uses fear, terror, and abuse to keep his kingdom in line, whether it be his business or his family. Moore describes the tyrant like this. The tyrant exploits and abuses others. He is ruthless, merciless, and without feeling when he's pursuing what he thinks is his own self-interest.
That sounds like me when you try fucking with my past. I'm trying to make a family here. The only time I become a wolf is if family is being messed and fucked with. I become a tyrant.
His degradation of others knows no bounds. He hates all beauty, all innocence, all strength, all talent, all life energy. In terms of the dark tetrad traits, the tyrant is characterized by especially high levels of narcissism and Machiavellianism. His narcissism is usually of the grandiose variety. Grandiose narcissism is characterized by an inflated sense of self-importance and entitlement. The grandiose narcissist needs the admiration of others. He's arrogant and has no empathy for others. But the thing is, while grandiose narcissists project confidence and superiority, they're highly sensitive to criticism or challenges to their self-image. Now, his Machiavellianism makes him manipulative and exploitative. He views others simply as tools to be used for his own personal gain. He's skilled at deceit and strategic thinking, which often helps him gain his position of power. A classic historical example of a true tyrant is Genghis Khan. He ruled and conquered by terrorizing, murdering, and pillaging entire peoples. His only concern was to amass more power and wealth, and no doubt had a taste for the violent destruction that he caused. At one point, his Mongolian empire stretched from China to Eastern Europe. The tyrant is a leader who's wholly focused on his own self-interest. These are your mob bosses, drug lords, corporate executives, and pimps. All they care about is furthering their own status, gaining power, and making money at the expense of others. This greed...
Yeah, I guess I could like expand on the positions that we're in, right? Like, you only hear a few stories like of gangsters getting out, right? And that's a very small amount. A very small amount of men. So, yeah, we could look at the gangs and use them as examples because the leaders keep pushing for more and more and more. So, yeah, you can, I guess, use these specific, word as gangs. But I guess it would be more focused on the leaders. But then, how many of the dudes that are in that group want to reach the same level as their club leader? How many are tyrants out of the ones that aren't really? Let's go back to my percentages. You can have 90% tyrant and 10% that are good that don't want to be a tyrant but have to be a tyrant.
And willingness to exploit can stem from a deep, unconscious feeling of lack. Some tyrants grew up with nothing or were themselves terrorized by a tyrant father, and at some point they made the decision, sometimes without realizing it, that they will never feel weak and small again, and that they'll do absolutely anything to make it to the top. But before we feel too much sympathy for these tyrants, it's good to remember that most simply have an insatiable hunger for power. In normal life, this is the tyrant boss who creates a workplace dominated by fear instead of respect, where employees are too intimidated to challenge or question any of his authority. He overworks his employees relentlessly, demanding excessive hours and unreasonable results to fuel his own ambitions. If any of his employees show too much talent or competence, he makes sure to suppress them, lest they outshine him. Instead of mentoring employees or fostering their growth, he berates them and undermines them to keep them subordinate. The types he usually does promote are yes men, who are mindlessly loyal to him and who he can easily manipulate. His primary goal is to consolidate power, ensuring that the people around him remain dependent on his decisions. He divides and conquers by pitting employees against each other to maintain control. Over time, the toxic culture that he creates breeds resentment and high turnover. Ultimately, very few organizations can last under this kind of leadership. The tyrant father rules his household with an iron fist. Robert Moore gives a great explanation of the father who's possessed by the tyrant archetype. It is the shadow king as tyrant in the father who makes war on his sons and his daughters' joy and strength, their abilities and vitalities. He fears their freshness, their newness of being, and the life force surging through them, and he seeks to kill it. He does this with open verbal assaults and depreciation of their interests, hopes, and talents. Or he does it alternately by ignoring their accomplishments, turning his back on their disappointments, and registering boredom and lack of interest when, for instance, they come home from school and present him with a piece of artwork or a good grade on a test. His attacks may not be limited to verbal or psychological abuse. They may include physical abuse. Spankings may turn into beatings, and there may be sexual assaults as well. The father possessed by the tyrant may sexually exploit his daughters or even his son's weakness and vulnerability. If you grew up with a tyrant father, this probably sounds all too familiar. He made sure to crush your...
Okay, so when you look at each of the titles of male masculinity, you can't find an individual and really exploit that one title of toxic masculinity to the tits, right? Like, so yes, the traits of being a man can be toxic. How do you want to use those traits, for the good or for the bad? I really honestly truly pick the good. I love God. I love the mindset of how God is laid out in the Bible. Simply put, he's amazing. He's amazing on how he's put up with us, and I like to practice that same type of patience with people.
spirits every chance he got. Again,
unless you get out of your vehicle and you try and attack me like my neighbor here.
This stems from the tyrant father's paranoia of his children surpassing him in any way. His strict, draconian rules leave everyone feeling suffocated, and by keeping his children terrified of stepping out of line, he's able to tighten his control. Some children are simply crushed by his abuse and never really recover, and others grow up to be deeply angry, hateful men. As a husband, he controls every aspect of his wife's life. He sees her as his property. In his mind, her purpose is to serve his needs. He doesn't see her as a human being, let alone as his partner. He starts off by isolating her from her loved ones, sometimes in an innocent-seeming way. Once he cuts her off from her support systems, she becomes dependent on him, which is exactly the way he likes it. That way, he has even more control. Sometimes he'll frame his controlling behavior as protecting her. He has to know exactly where she is at all times. He dictates how much money she can spend, and he'll often accuse her of cheating in a violent, jealous rage. Often this just stems from his own paranoia, and it's another useful way of terrorizing her into submission. Needless to say, a woman who lives with this kind of man has every last bit of her identity and self-worth squeezed out of her until there's nothing left. Heaven help her if she tries to escape from his clutches. The tyrant husband never responds well to that. As I've been hinting at, one of the key features of the tyrant is that he's terrified of being usurped. If his subjects show any sign of competence or leadership, he takes them out immediately. Because he's terrified...
That is the true definition of what a woman is now. That's what they can't. Now, women have become the tyrants, and there's no real tyrant behavior left in men. Like, that's the 100% truth in what I have seen. Men are not tyrants. Women have become the tyrants. And men can't be tyrants.
Of them taking his place. His paranoia of being overthrown is one of the things that drives him to terrorize his subjects. This paranoia can turn murderous. In the Soviet Union, for example, Joseph Stalin carried out the Great Purge. In this mass execution, his paranoia drove him to execute anywhere between 70 to 90% of his commanding officers. The higher-ranked ones were almost all executed. Stalin was so paranoid that disloyalty was brewing in his ranks, and this is what drove him to kill more Soviet generals and colonels that fell in World War II. The thing is, all tyrants are at some point overthrown, making their paranoia justified, you might say. Even in bands of chimpanzees, tyrannical alpha males don't last as long as the empathetic ones. Franz de Waal was a genius primatologist who wrote several books on primate social behavior and political dynamics. He found that the stable alpha males acted like benevolent kings. In his book Mama's Last Hug, He writes the following: competent alpha males in chimpanzee societies often adopt a control role, pacifying conflicts by intervening impartially. They may disperse fights by physically separating combatants or through displays of dominance that emphasize authority rather than aggression. This impartiality fosters stability within the group and earns them long-term respect. The sharing of resources by alpha males highlights their political savvy and benevolence. An alpha strategically distributed meat, often without consuming it himself, to strengthen alliances with non-threatening individuals. This generosity prolonged his dominance for over a decade, illustrating how giving rather than hoarding resources can solidify power. Now, the tyrannical alpha males, on the other hand, did not last long. They were eventually taken out by a coalition of younger males who were tired of their rule of terror. The aggressive alpha males are most often taken out by a coalition of younger males. In his book Good Natured, de Waal elaborates on this. Two male chimpanzees team up to overthrow an aggressive and unfair ruler, waging a war of nerves for weeks or months. They support each other through intimidation displays and actual confrontations until the alpha is forced out of power. This highly coordinated coalition highlights how group members react to dominance perceived as excessive or unjust. Even in our primate cousins, the tyrant never lasts. An example from Greek mythology of a tyrant being overthrown is the defeat of Kronos by his son Zeus. Kronos was so terrified of being usurped by his children that he swallowed each of them as soon as they were born. Like the devouring mother who keeps her children dependent on her and doesn't allow them to grow, the tyrant father will always value his own power over the lives of his children. He will keep them small and weak to make sure they will never be able to disturb his reign of tyranny. In order to protect Zeus, Rhea devised a plan to hide him in a cave in Crete, where he could grow up without the knowledge of his father Kronos. To trick Kronos, Rhea handed him a stone instead of Zeus, which he readily swallowed like all his other children. When Zeus was fully grown and ready, he defeated his father and rescued his siblings. And here we have yet another example of the benevolent king being favored over the tyrant. Even in the Disney movie The Lion King, we have another example of the tyrant being overthrown by a younger coalition. Mufasa is the benevolent Lion King who his evil brother Scar murders to gain power. He terrorizes his lion pride and uses his army of barbaric hyenas to enforce his rule and maintain control. Eventually, when Simba grows up and is strong enough, he and Nala overthrow Scar. Simba becomes the new benevolent king and restores peaceful order and harmony in his kingdom. Another historical example is the assassination of Julius Caesar. We often hear about the story as if Caesar was betrayed by Brutus and his other senators, but really, we rarely hear about the fact that Caesar had declared himself dictator for life. He began to consolidate more and more power, undermining the Republic and the Senate. Whenever a king or a leader of any kind turns into a dictator, his days are numbered. The paradox of the tyrant archetype is that his evil often stems from a deep insecurity and weakness. Moore writes, "The man possessed by the tyrant is very sensitive to criticism, and though putting on a threatening front, will at the slightest remark feel weak and deflated. He won't show you this, however. What you will see, unless you know what to look for, is rage. But under the rage is a sense of worthlessness, vulnerability, and weakness. The tyrant lacks real substance, and he knows it. In order to become the benevolent king, a man must balance his leadership with the sense of duty towards others. Like Marcus Aurelius writes in Meditations, if you have been placed in a position above others, are you automatically going to behave like a despot? Remember who you are and who you govern, that they are kinsmen, brothers by nature, fellow descendants of Zeus." That last line is key because it shows that he doesn't try to make himself a god. Instead, he puts himself on the same level as his fellow man. Now for the sex addict archetype. The sex addict is the toxic version of the lover. He's the man possessed by the sin of lust. The sex addict will do anything to satisfy his appetite for sex. This can be the womanizer, the cheating husband, or the porn addict. This can come in many shapes and many forms. It's the womanizer, or fuckboy, so to speak, who seduces women and discards them once he's had his fix. It's the cheating husband who's willing to betray his wife for cheap thrills with other women. It's the man who can't stop watching porn, cutting himself off from any real human connection, and becomes disgusted with himself in the process. Speaking of the dark tetrad traits, the sex addict is characterized by especially high levels of narcissism. He feels entitled to his pleasures and disregards the damage he does to the women he sleeps with. He's arrogant and superior, and in some real way, feels that the rules don't apply to him. He's able to use his grandiose charm to lure women into his web, and only sees them for what they can do for him. The men who are addicted to porn, on the other hand, are usually not grandiose narcissists, and probably have a hard time interacting with others. If anything, they might score high on vulnerable narcissism. This means that they're still self-centered and feel that they deserve more than is given to them, but they're also usually more introverted and depressed. They constantly feel like the world does not appreciate their unique abilities and value, and so they don't mind engaging in the demeaning practice of watching porn and paying girls to do all sorts of unmentionable things for them on screen. Let's start by diving into the womanizer archetype. This
Let's talk about porn for a second. It's like a tool. All right? It's entertainment, not education. Okay? So only when you talk to your partner and she finds it to be that exciting, then you do it. You don't force it on them. It's an agreement. Now, to talk about porn addiction, what is porn addiction? So, like, I got a quad, okay? Like, I don't even get on it once a day. I love the quad. Like, I love my SRT. It's an amazing race car, sports car. But like my food, if I crave something, I force myself not to just give whatever I'm craving. So just because I'm thinking about my quad doesn't mean I'm going to go out and ride it. So it should be like that with pornography with me. It's like guys will jerk off every day. So if you use pornography once a day, I don't think that's addictive. You know? Because at the most, for me, it might be, let's say, once a day. But it's not even once a day. I'll go days without even thinking about it. But I use it like a tool, like a hammer. I'll use it for the good, not the bad. I'm not going to sit there and allow myself to be addicted to it. It's kind of gross to even imagine myself sitting here like some gooners. And we got to not look at males as well, because only women are online posting TikToks and whatnot about their gooning. How they can't stop reading all the spice. So, why do men get targeted for watching pornography? You know, we're only watching a real act. Quite frankly, when you're reading about jerking off and milking out cows, and all types of beasts, and imagining all the different dick that you can get in your sophisticated minds when you're just taking sex and really pushing it to its fantasy limits. It's to the limits where it's disgusting, girls. It's disgusting. Sex is sex. That's why the camera is there, because you can't write about sex all the time because it's the same thing. Yeah, you can have like different stories to lead into the bedroom, but when you're in the bedroom, it's all the same. what, girls are more sophisticated because they've got books to talk about how much they want dragon dick. So I think it's really weird as a female to porno out, goon out, because you're sitting there reading a book constantly when a man hops on and does his deed. And who cares if a man sits in front of a TV screen edging for, let's say, 1 to 2 hours? Girls, that's the man you want. Because if a man can control his orgasm, doesn't that mean the longer he's going to last in the bedroom after he's past that comfortable stage? Because if he's not past the comfortable stage, nervousness does not allow for a controlled orgasm. So women should allow men to be able to watch pornography so that they can edge, sort of speaking. Not only so that they can edge, it's so that they can take a fucking break from having to plow you 3 times a day, give or take. Just so that you don't think I'm cheating or looking at other girls. Like, give me a fucking break. It is not easy to do 3 times a day, and men are the ones that do the fucking, not the girls. So girls can't even fuck. This was supposed to be an episode about male toxicity, but it just leads back to more fucked up female shit. I'm loving this, honestly. You're trying to talk about male toxicity, but you can't express and teach me how males can be toxic. I can see how males can be toxic. You either decide to love the hateful shit that you do, or you don't. So if you're a dude who sits in his house and actually ejaculates more than once a day to pornography, like, and I'm talking every day. So if you're doing it twice a day, every single day, and sometimes it's 3 times a day, we're at an addictive level. Right, like my vaporizer, like my marijuana, I make sure I don't do it constantly. And right away, I'm actually quitting this, quitting with my mother, and only because Canada made a law that you can't buy flavored vape juice online anymore. Okay, time to quit. Easier said than done? No, easily said to do. The money does not justify the vice. Okay? I've got a quad, got my cat, got a house. I'm putting some, I guess, upgrades to the side because I'm being lazy in that sense. I don't have to with my water heater, but I want to. It would just make the area look so neat and professional. But yeah, like porn addicts, you're only an addict if you are literally watching porn 2+ times a day. If you're doing something once a day, controlled, never more than once a day, you're just doing what you've always done since you were a little boy. You touch it every day. And if a woman says this is addictive, then what are you doing when you're single and you're tickling your clit every day except for your monthly cycle? And even during your monthly cycle, because I know during monthly cycle, that if a woman has an orgasm through her period cycle, it helps relieve any pain and tension. It is medicinal for the period. But it's gross, it's nasty, you don't want to touch and play with it, who knows. But the hormones in a woman is like 3 weeks of the month, especially after, or especially before and after the period. Or did I get that mixed up? Is it just one? No, I think it's before and after. And after, it runs pretty constant until right before the period is going to start. Like, I think it's more before the period, if I remember correctly, because it's like the last chance that they have where they would have a chance to seed, because for the next week, there's going to be other competitors to breed, sort of speaking. Um, but yeah, like, what women, I've heard women tickling their clitorises up to 8 times a day. What? What? And you go out and tell men that they're porn addicts? When I can't do it more than once a day. And you're rubbing it out 8 times a day? Who in this society is realistically the sex fiends? If it wasn't for the women, we wouldn't be so sexually hungry. It's only because of women we're sexually hungry, and they use it like they try to use it to their advantages and however they think they can get it, which never makes sense. I like this episode. The male toxicity is half of what women are right now, especially the tyrant. That's like the full definition of what women are exactly right now is they have become a tyrant. Now, I'm just going to say this right now. The chick who cuts my grass is the farthest thing from a tyrant. That's going to be the 10% of the population whom is good. All right, Mickey, shut up.
Boy type uses his charm to get women into bed and then carelessly discards them. The thing about the womanizer is that he understands women well. He knows
No, women do this to guys all the time again.
how to get inside their heads and tell them exactly what they want to hear. He makes them feel special and
There's nothing there is no womanizer anymore. Men don't want to look at you anymore. If men don't want to look at you anymore, how do they conduct womanizer? How do they conduct their womanizing? How?
desired. Sometimes he opens up to them and creates a facade of deep sincerity. He'll lie through his teeth and tell them that he's never felt like this before. Sometimes he'll go as far as to tell them that he's looking for a serious relationship. And all of that charisma and charm makes it easy for him to lure women into his bed again and again. He pays no mind.
I guess that kind of sounds like me. Because when I get with a woman, it's surprising how deceitful they can be. Like the last one, she knew how to do construction. She was supposed to like foreman position in construction zones, and I was like, sweet. Sweet. And you cook for your kids? Sign me up, baby. Like, she let me inside the very first time we seen each other. Or I should say, she lured me inside of her cave. She put the whole good mama act on, cooking, working. But it didn't take long for that real person to show.
Mind to the broken hearts, charisma and charm makes it easy for him to lure women into.
So that girl makes me feel like I have found a diamond in the rough. And honestly, I've never felt so good in my life. You make me feel amazing, babe. And then it doesn't take long. As soon as I have to bring them into my own home, that's when it all goes down. You know I got brain damage. You know I don't go to work. I'm going to sit here and figure out ways of trying to make money to get off my government disability. That's my job now. I care for the home if you're working, but as soon as she moved in, she never looked for work. She's relying on my disability check only and her monthly child paychecks. Like, come on, man. And she wasn't cooking as much anymore. She wasn't cleaning as much, so I seen her not doing as much, so I stopped cleaning. That was hard for me to stop cleaning. That's hard. Things have got to look clean, organized. Things have got to be at least off the floor, you know. But it doesn't take long, man. And those bitches turn into all this shit that we've looked at today. They are toxic females and toxic men put together in one package. They got their women's rights to have rights like men. They have taken on toxic male roles, especially that tyrant one. That tyrant one screams what all women are: control freaks. Control freaks, control freaks, control freaks.
His bed again and again.
Control
He pays
freaks.
no mind to the broken hearts he leaves behind. He's in it for his own self gratification, for the ego boost he gets every time he lands another conquest.
Women.
He becomes addicted to that cycle of chase, ecstasy, and ego boost. Once he's conquered a woman, it's on to the next one. And so the cycle continues. So
there's always going to be that man and there's always going to be that woman. You can't put it on every one of us. But realistically, you look at tyrant and that's women.
So the womanizer is in it for that high, for that ecstasy and sexual gratification. He's not in it for the intimacy.
Men have become like nullified as a creature. We aren't men. We aren't women. We are asexuals. Yeah, that's right. I have sex with myself.
With another person. Needless to say, many women have been burned by this kind of man, especially the younger ones. As a woman matures, she starts to develop a sense for the womanizer, but the younger women become entranced by his charm and are easy prey. One reason the sex addict chases these sexual highs is to escape from his own internal disorder. He unconsciously searches for that wholeness outside of himself. And beyond the sensual element, he uses sex to affirm his own masculinity and self-worth, especially when he feels deep down that he's not a real man. He'll show off to his buddies about his latest conquests, but this is really a way for him to mask his deep lack of self-worth. He lacks discipline and true meaning. Another manifestation of the sex addict is the cheating husband. This is the type of man who is led by his sexual appetite, so much so that he's willing to throw away his commitment to his wife. His desire for the thrill and
Yeah, I don't know how
excitement
to
of
do that.
sleeping with another woman, often younger, overtakes his
don't know how to
love
do
and
that.
faithfulness. This is the
And I don't want to do that. But here's just a weird, like, thing. If a man wanted to try to do that, how does he do that when if he doesn't answer a text message within 30 seconds, you got an argument waiting for you when you open the door. So how does one? That just sounds like a lot of stress to me. If I'm not at home, I come racing back home right away. I hate leaving home. Weird, weird, weird.
kind of
It's weird.
man who's pulled
It's
by
so
his
weird.
baser instincts and succumbs to instant gratification. The cheating husband can often keep his betrayals secret and going on for years.
You know, I that's what was going through my mind when I was with my ex-wife, but I was thinking of hooking up with a guy because it just seemed like this would be a much quicker way out. If something like this happened and she found out, it'd be a quick way out. But that whole time, I'm thinking, like, is there any way that I can go and see someone else? Because she's, like, ruining my life. I need some life in my life. I wish I could meet another woman, you know? You know, that's what I was thinking of, like, if I could get with a guy kind of thing, like, maybe that would be ideal, because, like, all I'm thinking is how do I get out of this relationship? Should I go and try to spend some time with someone? And, you know, depending on how the home life is at home with whatever woman is behind that door, that woman is responsible for how the home life is. So if the home life is not good, that man is going to try to secretively leave that house because, one, he's not wanted. Two, you're walking on eggshells in your own home as a man when you make the decisions, not her. So you don't need that shit. You're going to go out, you're going to meet someone else, and you're going to keep that a secret. And then the woman's going to call you a cheater. Well, I wouldn't have been cheating if you weren't a fucking psycho. Fucking psycho?
His narcissism disconnects him from the emotional consequences that his behaviors can have on his wife. And it leads him to feel like he's entitled to these extramarital pleasures, as if the expectation of being with one woman for the rest of his life is out of question.
If I had a woman that cheated on me, I wouldn't mind that at all because at least that one woman would understand what, hey, this guy wants to, like, just take a break once and masturbate, whatever. I can understand that. I want other things than him too. Okay, but that's kind of funny because I just want a break, just masturbate. But you, if you were a cheater, you just want other D, and that's not me. Just because I'm looking at Roni here, Roni Fuchs, doesn't mean I've thought about touching her sexually. Same thing when and if I'm watching pornography, I don't look at that screen and go, "Oh man, I wish, I wish, I wish, I wish, I wish." I've never wished when I looked, never once, because it's just a tool to me, right? I have a great episode to make on Lily Phillips and Bonnie Blue, two porn actresses that did 100 men in a night or in 24 hours, and the other one did 1,000 men in like 24 hours. and people are really bash talking this shit. And I want to say, like, right here, quickly, how can you be trash talking the woman who did 1,000 guys when I'm watching pornography and there's only like 12 guys that have been fucking thousands of different girls for the past 25 years? They've had sex with more than 1,000 different girls. So why is the woman being talked down when, in my mind, there's only a few jobs for women now? That's pornography, online modeling, or pornography, prostitution, or healthcare. There's only two places that women should be allowed to work now. And if they don't work, they're stuck behind the house. Because there is no more man. The women have become men, and they can't even see that. They're the true tyrant. They have literally become a tyrant generation. Female tyrant generation is now.
On the other hand, we have the porn addict. This is the type who consumes endless content that demeans and objectifies women. Sex is good, but porn is not sex. Porn is extreme and violent. Porn isn't sexual union.
Sorry, I don't watch that. Violence, I don't watch when men are hitting girls. I don't watch when they're tied up and being spanked. I watch anything that looks like what I have done in my bedroom. Porn, like I said, you going to use it for good or for bad? I choose it for the good. Don't overdo it. Don't become an addict. Use it for the good. Don't look at the toxic evil.
With another. It's a quick fix. The porn addict becomes a slave to the dopamine hit he gets from watching porn. He grows more disgusted with himself as time goes by, and he's essentially another.
See, now I don't understand that kind of person. So I do know that there is some guys out there that can't stop wanking it. And I don't know how that happens. I mean, I don't know how you do it. Like I said, there's always going to be that one or two people in the group. I mean, why else would we be able to hear about stuff like this, right?
Manifestation of a man who has completely succumbed to the instant gratification of his sexual appetite. A mythological representation of the sex addict is the Greek god Dionysus. He had many other different facets, some of them positive, but Dionysus also represents sensual indulgence. He was the god of wine, which symbolized intoxication, pleasure, and ecstasy. Camille Paglia describes him like this: the Dionysian is no picnic. Dionysus is energy, ecstasy, hysteria, promiscuity, emotionalism, heedless indiscriminateness of idea or practice. Dionysus is energy unbound, mad, callous, destructive, wasteful. This is the force and energy driving the sex addict. The thing is, the sex addict's chase and addiction to pleasure doesn't only hurt others. Ultimately, like any good addict, he cycles through extreme pleasure and the inevitable crash. Jean Shinoda Bolen describes.
All right, I just got to mention it again. It just disgustingly crazy how close Roni Fuchs is describing the archetypes of toxic masculinity, but everything that Roni is talking about with male toxicity is what women are right now. They're the sex addicts. They're the ones out there making TikToks. Where's the dick? And men are like, we don't need to have sex, you fucking dick craving psycho.
A man possessed by the Dionysian spirit like this: The Dionysian archetype is one of intense sensuality and emotionality, often overwhelming for those who embody it. In relationships, this manifests as passionate highs and tumultuous lows, captivating partners but also leaving them destabilized. The Dionysus man lives for the present, seeking ecstatic experiences that dissolve the barriers of individuality. However, his intensity can lead to fragmentation, as he struggles
Again,
to
every man
reconcile his
there is
impulses
some men
with
like this
societal
too.
expectations. To embrace this archetype
we're
is
looking
to
at
walk
women
a fine line
in a
between
male
bliss and despair. We all need the element of the lover in our lives. The problem
toxic
happens
episode.
when a man loses himself to this force and becomes single-minded and callous in his pursuit of lust and ecstasy. The Dionysian, if tamed, can inject our life with a sense of play, wonder, and joy. A healthy man is able to love and relate to others. He allows himself to enjoy life and open himself up to joy. This kind of energy can be cultivated in those who don't have access to it. And as for the sex addict, in the best of cases, life sends him a sober wake-up call. Now on to the evil genius. The evil genius is the toxic version of the wise man. He's the toxic version of the innovator, the scholar, and the sage. He's the man possessed by the sin of greed. Simply put, the evil genius archetype is the man who uses his intelligence for his own personal gain, without a care for the destructive consequences. He can also manifest as the negative element of the trickster. In terms of the dark tetrad personality traits, he's the kind of man who would score high on Machiavellianism and narcissism. He has zero empathy and is very comfortable stepping on people to get ahead. He's the man who uses intelligence to further himself financially without any regard for the destructive consequences. This is the lawyer who defends murderers and keeps them on the street as long as it benefits his own bank account. These are your corporate bosses who are willing to lay off hundreds of workers or completely dismantle their company if it means they make a profit.
You mean we're looking at people whom Saw looks at to take into his rehabilitation center to change your toxic life choice decisions, and hopefully you change if you live. Are you willing to bleed for your own life? Saw is taking in these types of people to change them.
They're perfectly fine with cheating people out of their fortunes if it benefits them. These are the executives in Big Pharma who don't care that they're causing an opioid crisis. These are your historic advertising executives on Madison Avenue who use their marketing brilliance to manipulate consumers into endless consumption. Today, it would be the owners of big tech social media platforms who seem completely unconcerned with the fact that they've destroyed the mental health of whole generations of children and young adults. And essentially, this is the
Society's all
driver
been
of
greed
crony
right now.
capitalism, where
Money
intelligent
is the
men
root of
with
all evil.
zero morals enable an absurd transfer of wealth, which disproportionately increases the wealth gap even more. And just to be clear, I'm 100% for capitalism. It's the rigging of the system that I'm against. A great example of this is Gordon Gekko from the movie Wall Street. If you haven't seen it, watch it immediately. He's the big shot on Wall Street whose only concern is to make money, leaving scorched earth behind him. He'll rig the system to make money, even if it means destroying someone else in the process. When he promises to buy an airline, for example, to save it and its workers, he immediately turns around on his promise and starts to dismantle the airline and sell it for parts. Every decision and action is the use of his remarkable intelligence for his own personal gain. Dr. Frankenstein is yet another example of the evil genius. He uses his intelligence and knowledge to literally create a monster, which is a symbolic way to describe what happens when an evil genius misuses his power. An archetypal description of the evil genius is the Luciferian instinct. This is a man who places his own intelligence above any other value, whether it be God or the well-being of anyone around him. Because of his superior intelligence, he believes that this gives him the right to use his abilities in whichever way he sees fit, no matter the consequence. The Luciferian man is cynical. He feels that everything in the end is meaningless, And so everything is permissible. A classic character who embodies the Luciferian instinct is Ivan from Dostoevsky's Karamazov brothers, the more analytical and intellectual out of the three brothers. In the book, Ivan famously says, "If there is no God, everything is lawful." He believes in nothing, and so allows himself anything. He's cynical, arrogant, superior, and detached. And a key element of this type is his detachment from others, which allows him to act without feeling. For an example of the negative expression of the trickster archetype, the Joker from Batman is the classic example. While tricksters can serve a positive role by...
It's just funny because for her to pull out examples of the toxic masculinity archetypes, she's only pulling out characters from man-made stories. The Joker is not a real person, so it's not a perfect example. A perfect example is like you use Hitler or something along that line. You don't use characters from fictional stories, Roni. I'm sorry, girl. You make great content that teaches me things, but you kind of need to think about stuff like that. You really do, girl. Not sorry to say, and sorry if it kind of hurts the pride a little bit, but um, yeah, it goes along the whole same shit I always like to say. You know, you can't single out a group by using the individual. You gotta single out the individual from the group. So if we're gonna look at how I look, we can only look at the Joker from a fictional story as being fictional, and this fictional character doesn't exist in reality. So does this toxic masculinity archetype even exist in real men? Like that's what I'm like. That's like what I'm trying to say. Like it doesn't. It's so contradicting, is it doesn't make sense to her saying the Joker is a perfect example. Let's forgive her. She is scripting all of this. She's put a lot of work, energy, and thought. You know, she's deleted. She's added new. You know, she's thought. You know, so let's not like beat her on the head, but it would be nice for her to think about that kind of stuff, right? Like, if you're gonna talk about toxic masculinity trait, use someone in our history or in our recent culture right now that's found to be exactly this, to the point you're trying to make. Not the Joker.
revealing our blind
Not
spots and
fictional,
awakening our
not fictional
consciousness, the
characters.
Joker exists purely to spread chaos and destruction. His permanently carved smile symbolizes his delight in pain and chaos, and he makes sure to dish it out in the most creative and unexpected ways. He uses his wit to constantly outsmart Batman and wreak havoc because that's all part of the fun.
What? So, I think a good definition of that would basically be Jake Paul at the beginning of his YouTube career. He was causing destruction in his clan, in his house clans. If I don't have to say specifics, but Jake Paul would be a better example, I think, than the Joker. And if you don't know who Jake Paul is, then man, you gotta go watch all of his shit from when he began on YouTube, and now how boxing has actually saved his life from how toxic his content was and what he was doing to make money. Like he was like straight up robbing everyone who was trying to buy shit from him, kind of thing. So I think that is a better example than the Joker for this story. Jake Paul for like for a current character, for a real current person, it'd be Jake Paul. I think would be much better than the
Genius archetype has many positive manifestations. It has the power to drive innovation in industry.
the
As
way
the
he did
wise
it.
man, this archetype
It it rised. It made a lot of people rise up in many different like emotions on how he was like bringing his content across. It's kind of like a dick.
is the mentor and male guide
dick.
that helps others with their transformations. This is the man who can further human knowledge. But like anything, it can turn
Was a dick. Boxing saved his life. He was the one responsible, as well as him and Mike Tyson. They're the ones that worked with Netflix to get Netflix to host live sporting events.
toxic if it isn't tamed and balanced with discipline and empathy. So there you have it. These are the true toxic masculine archetypes. Toxic masculinity does not equal traditional masculinity. Masculinity becomes toxic only when operating without a moral framework.
That's what I've been saying all fucking episode long. Good or bad? What are you
And
going to
its
use it for?
energies aren't properly channeled. What I hope you take away from this video is that if you're trying to develop your masculinity, that does not make you toxic. The world needs you to become a man. We need more strong, virtuous men. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. If this is an area you've been struggling with in any way, you're more than welcome to reach out. Till next time, guys.
Hi, welcome.
Oh.
Yes, there is such.
Now. Male escorts, what women pay for and what men can learn from toxic females. It's time to cash in, boys. It's time to get online and pimp your dick out to all them lonely pussy motherfuckers out there. Shit, I'm so new in YouTube. I keep looking over, hoping to reply to live chat, right? And it's like the only time I get to reply to live chat is when my best friend hops on to watch me. She'll help the YouTube algorithm out in the far future, right? And I'm not really rushing to get there, honestly. You know, I think I in the start started saying like, you know, like and subscribe a little bit too much in my mind. I don't want to like sound like half the YouTubers out there, but because like at one point like I knew like subscribing, I didn't know anything about it. I look at this word, this button that says subscribe, and I'm thinking, I mean, I'm not gonna pay per month to subscribe. I'll like, thumbs up, but I never pressed subscribe before. It was kind of weird. Just up until about 4 years ago, I learned what the whole subscribe button was. It's funny. That's funny. It's just if you want to see more of that video, you subscribe. The only time you get asked for money is after you press subscribe. Some YouTubers have the button that turns into join. And if you join, you can decide to pay this much amount of money. And it's like, yeah. I don't know. I'm going off topic as usual. Hey, Goose Trail. Welcome. All right. Just trying to think if there's, anything I could like touch on. But really, you know what? There isn't. I've touched on way too fucking much. And my episodes aren't short because, hey, she talks for 40 minutes, so can I. You know what I mean? And what the fuck is the point of having a reaction video if motherfucker ain't reacting? Like, fuck this cracker. I'm on to the next motherfucker. So, I'll sit here, talk, talk till I end up saying the wrong damn thing because eventually there's going to be some live chat going on in the future and fuck, I might say the wrong thing. Try to get me to fuck up, basically. Hey, this was supposed to be focused on male toxicity, folks. Come on, Mickey. That's what your fucking title said. Yeah, but when we got into male toxicity, you remember back in World War II, women fought for women's rights to have rights like men, and now it's just like, so fucked up. They want to be like men, but can't handle being like a man because you will and can never be like a man. Your mind was never biologically created to do so. Once I start seeing all the women take out, like, when all the men stay home and every woman is the one that has to go to war, and they come back and be able to prove that they could handle coming back from war without getting, proving that they could handle it better than men, maybe we'll start talking about women's rights. All right, you got to go to war before we start thinking about women's rights for you. If you can handle what we can put up with, we'll think about one or two rights. One or two rights, that's it. Here's one right. Women who have no rights don't have a curfew. They're allowed to go outside at night to be hanging out with their girlfriends when their kids are asleep. There's a right. There you go. Fuck. Yeah, this fucking episode turned into more female toxicity than it did male toxicity because really everything that a man is supposed to be, we aren't supposed to be that anymore. So we have become asexual and women think that they're men as the true leader, but as soon as you ask them a simple question like, so in the relationship, if what you say is to be true, how does a man get to be able to have leadership in a relationship when you're the one who wants full control? And the girl's like, um. So we got to look at what we were able to be in the past. But what we were able to be in the past, women amplify all that just because we try to hit on them and hope for the best. That might be my baby mama. Baby's mama. But I ain't gonna fuck with that shit. No, I ain't gonna fuck with that shit at all. Not now. Not from how women have treated us. They have taken on their women's rights. They have actually taken on all toxic masculinity archetypes. Yeah, it's probably pronounced archetypes. So I should like change this title into something like four real archetypes of toxic masculinity that women have adopted. That should be it. Let's just see if we can do that right now. Bring this over here so you guys can see me doing it. Where are we here? Alright, guys. Four archetypes of toxic masculinity that women have adopted. And four archetypes of toxic masculinity that women have become, not adopted, become, and I should like just, oh, I should actually go toxic masculinity that women have become. Quote that. If men can't or aren't, whoops, able to show these masculine traits, then that makes us men what? A sexual? Watch and listen how our masculine traits of how they can become toxic proven to show is how their character has actually become. Men are asexual and women have both male have both traits of toxic male and female traits of toxic male and female toxicity. Women have two role traits of toxicity, while men have become asexual, if I can say it like that. Yeah. Bada bing. Okay? That's how it is. Is that my dad bringing pizza? All right, everyone. That is a wrap. I'm just going to go outside, grab my pizza from my parents. All right. God bless you. Love all your souls. And we will see you on the next one, which is going to be later today, which will be me Destiny 2 playing. All right. All right, you guys. Again, God bless. Take care.